This is the Bambu Lab A1 Mini, a small bed slinger with optional multi-color capability using a brand new AMS system. Not what you expected? No, neither did I. However, the features packed into this little package might just make it the most beginner-friendly machine in its class. And in this video, I'll share with you what I love about the A1 Mini, what I don't love so much, and why X1 and P1 users can rest easy, because no, your 3D printers are not suddenly obsolete. Far from it. Let's get started. How's it going, guys? Angus here from Maker's Muse, and before we begin, I think it's really important to fully disclose my relationship with Bambu and the nature of this review. They reached out a few months ago regarding a new 3D printer in development and asked if I was interested in making a review. I said yes, and I sent them my review terms and conditions, which outline full autonomy, and they agreed, and they asked very nicely if I would refrain from disclosing any specs until the official release date. I haven't paid for these printers, but they haven't paid me anything either, and they have no control in this video, and they're not going to see it before you. As its name implies, it's small, 180mm by 180mm by 180mm in the Z, which is way smaller than the X1 Carbon, and that came as quite a shock, honestly, as I think many people, including myself, were expecting Bambu to go bigger, like Reality did with the K1 Max, and maybe we'll see one in future, but for now, we get this. As you'd expect from Bambu Lab, the 3D printer came superbly packed with a very good quick start guide, and was very simple to set up and get running. I do want to note, however, that the injection molded shipping clip looked so well engineered that I initially missed it during my setup. It looked like it was meant to be part of the printer. If Bambu is going to go to the effort of engineering a part like this simply for shipping purposes, they might as well engrave the mold with remove or make it bright red or something to make its purpose ultra clear, as I reckon some beginners in their excitement, like me, could still miss it. Once the shipping restraints and foam are removed, you need to fit this novel little mechanism which Bambu have implemented to deal with the little filament purges it makes between color changes. Yes, the A1 Mini poops, just like their other printers, but because the A1 Mini has a cantilever gantry which moves up as the print is completed, they had to fit the poop ejector arm to the gantry as well, and yes, that means that it flicks little filament poops everywhere. More on that later. Next, you have the optional spool holder if you intend to run just single material, but Bambu have hyped up on this colorful 3D printing for everyone thing, so let's move on to possibly the weirdest thing I've seen in 3D printing since the luggage handle that was on the Cheaty Tech X Maker all those years ago. This is the AMS Lite. You would be forgiven thinking that this is something made by Dyson, but no, it is Bambu's brand new AMS system. It looks super weird and at first glance pretty flimsy, but it's actually really well engineered and a breeze to set up. You plug the PTFE tubes into place and then click these strange grabby spool holders into position. These spool holders are like nothing I've ever seen. Bambu's engineers have designed in spring-loaded arms which allow the holder to securely grip spools from around 55mm in diameter up to about 67mm in diameter, which fits many, but unfortunately not all spools, such as these ones from Sunlu, which are too large and they just fall off and they'll need adapters. The spool holders are also specifically keyed to go into either the yellow or green side of the AMS system, and Bambu has gone to the length of even making the keys different. One is square and one is hexagonal. And you might be thinking, haha, silly engineers, they're just spool holders. Why would they bother making them different? They could just go on either side and it'd work fine. That's actually not the case at all. The way this new AMS system works is straight up genius, and none of the marketing material is talking about this. You see, the holders aren't motorized. All the filament loading and retracting is handled by a single DC motor and plastic gear train per filament spool, so 4 in total. And instead of motorizing the spool holders so when the filament's retracted it can wind correctly, they simply have a spring built into them and just enough drag so that the loading procedure will pre-tension the spring, and the filament withdrawal process allows the spring to release, winding the filament neatly back around the spool so it doesn't get tangled. It's simple, cheap, and oh so elegant. Durability in the long term could be an issue, however, with all those small plastic gears, but the units have clearly been designed with repair and replacement in mind, as I can see with the clear unit that they provided. Alrighty, so once you have it all connected like this, you'll notice that the A1 Mini, well, ain't so mini anymore. Because you can't stack the AMS on top of the printer, the whole system ends up taking up more desk area than just a fully loaded X1 Carbon with AMS. And I presume that the PTFE lengths are pretty critical, considering how they load and unload for proper function, so you can't easily relocate the AMS unit. When fully loaded with 4 spools, it's also quite heavy. It's got over 4 kilos of plastic hanging off it, and it does have a fair bit of wobble, but in my tests, it is very well designed, and I am confident that it won't tip over even during the most frantic of 3D prints. Which takes us to the 3D printer itself and Bambu's famous ultra-fast print speeds. How does this machine stack up against the ridiculous print speeds available on its other machines? Well, just like those other machines, the A1 Mini runs through a fully automatic calibration routine where it'll determine printer resonances in order to try to correct for them during ultra-fast printing. But this machine also does something that's brand new: active motor noise cancelling. From what I understand, it's similar to how active noise cancelling works in headphones, where an incoming waveform is inverted and the two will cancel each other out, but it's done with the motor noise somehow. It's pretty neat, and it does something, but I'll be honest, it's been years since I tested the 3D printer and thought, oh wow, those motors are so loud. Because stepper drivers have become just so much better in terms of the micro-stepping at frequencies we can't hear, I honestly haven't thought of it as an issue for some time. What hasn't become quieter, however, are the fan sounds, and the A1 Mini has this mini jet engine sounding fan that ramps up and down during the print, and the filament purge ejection routine with a little flippy arm is honestly way more annoying than motor noises ever would be, so don't expect a silent experience even with all of this new cool tech. That aside though, I fired up a Speed Benchy and yeah, it is mad fast for a cantilevered Cartesian 3D printer. This X, Y, and Z orientation is a more cost-effective way of building a 3D printer, but by design can't move as fast as a core XY arrangement. It's just never going to be as rigid, and that's the system that is used in Bambu's more expensive offerings. We call these bed slingers for a reason, because they literally do that, and at high speed, that movement of the print is prone to wobbles and print failures, as well as print artifacts. As such, Bambu has had to limit the acceleration on the A1 Mini to a measly 10,000 millimeters per second squared, compared to 20,000 millimeters per second squared on the X1 Carbon and P1P and P1S. But yeah, honestly, that's still crazy fast acceleration for a machine like this, and it has a lot to do with how well engineered the A1 Mini really is compared to other attempts at similar machine styles we've seen in the past. Long-term subscribers to the channel may recall my review of the first generation Cetus 3D printer back in 2016, which was a very well-engineered 3D printer with a very similar approach to the A1 Mini. It had a cantilever gantry, a moving print bed, but it used high-quality linear rails to maintain rigidity, and I got some incredible quality prints off that machine over the years. They released a few variations over the years, but hot take, none were quite as good as the original I was sent, and this is honestly what it should have evolved into. Each axis on the A1 Mini uses an appropriately sized linear rail, and it's so incredibly well constrained that you can literally pick this up and flail it around in all directions as it's printing, and it just doesn't seem to care. Yeah, don't try that at home. It's able to do this because every single part that's responsible for accuracy is made from metal. This bit, even this little arm leading to the lead screw hitting around the frame, all of these metal parts lead hugely to the rigidity of the machine, and inspecting this printer, especially with the clear pre-production version they sent across to me, is honestly an industrial designer's delight. So, it's solid for a bed slinger, but how well does it print? Well, thanks to the automatic pretty much everything, you just connect it to your network using the Bambu Handy app and send files wirelessly through their cloud service, and well, they mostly just work. No manual bed leveling or nozzle height to mess up, and when the prints are done, you just pop them off the magnetic spring steel print bed, which has a powder-coated PEI sheet, or you can opt for their cool sheet, which is a build tack-like surface. This machine is very close to a 3D printer I would happily let a member of my family run and print things on without fear of a phone call 1 hour later saying it had broken. I say close because the A1 Mini lacks any kind of spaghetti detection like the X1 Carbon has, or there are other machines you can upgrade to, which is a webcam constantly monitoring the print to determine if it had failed during the printing process. The A1 Mini does have a camera built into the gantry, which you can currently use to monitor your prints, but currently you can't use it for spaghetti detection because it's harder to do on a bedslinger design than a Core XY, but who knows, a future firmware update may unlock it, as well as time lapses, and it's definitely something I'd like to see. It is, however, able to determine and sense filament, and even calibrate flow rate if you have the correct print bed. It doesn't work on the powder-coated PEI sheets, however, though, which is a bummer. I've printed a ton of things in the short time I've had the A1 Mini, and its ease of use and reliability has proven it a really handy tool for rapid prototyping of PLA models, as long as they're not too large. I have found myself having to do the trick where you orient models at a 45-degree angles so they can fit into a slightly smaller print volume, and that's something I almost never have to do on my larger printers. Some models have sidewall artifacts, which I can only assume are due to the resonance compensation not being fully dialed in, but many of these prints were also done on the world's worst wobbly standing desk, which wobbles more than a drunken sailor coming ashore. So yeah. The reason the majority of my prints are in PLA as well, because this is an open air design. Do not expect to be able to print nylon, ABS, or any other high temperature material on the A1 Mini, despite the fact that the print bed states it can support ABS. The slicer actually locks out the material. You can't select it when you have the A1 Mini selected in the slicer, and I did, just for thoroughness, make my own profile based off a PETG profile, up the temperatures, and within a few layers, the ABS print just warped off the print bed. PETG though will work as long as you use a protective layer of glue stick on the PEI print surface, or just maybe consider swapping to a G10 Garolite print surface if you want to print that, or TPU, which this machine can do. I did a test. It was mega janky, but it did work great and proves that the extruder on the A1 Mini is capable of printing flexible filaments at speed, which is very handy indeed. Directly only though. Don't expect to be able to feed TPU through the AMS system. It's going to be like feeding a wet noodle through a tube. It's not going to work, just like it doesn't work on their other AMS system. Not all prints were successes, however. My clearance castle had the inner component come loose right at the end and start rotating in place, ruining the print, though the model does still function beautifully. This is just due to the A1's trade-off of first layer adhesion and accuracy and part release being a little bit too weak for small surface area prints. But honestly, this is just a minor failure compared to this poor green Vaporeon, which was designed by Printed Obsession, using default tree supports out of Bambu Slicer. They almost always broke free when they were trying to support overhangs with small contact points. There's like sharp overhangs that just are really difficult to support. The trees would just wobble and break. The rest of the print though looks awesome. But yeah, tree supports out of Bambu Slicer still need work, but they're clearly even less effective with a moving bed slinger like this machine at high speed than they are on the Core XY approach in the X1 Carbon. Out of all the single color prints I did, my favorite by far is this T-Rex bust designed by IK3D. The tricolor silk PLA makes it look out of this world, and the teeth printed beautifully even without support material is printed in this orientation. But sadly, this is just about as big as you can print on the A1 Mini, again fitted at a 45-degree angle to just get a little bit of extra size out of the print. Now onto the entire selling point of this 3D printer, multicolor 3D printing. It can do it. The multicolor prints look amazing, but oh boy is there a catch. Because this printer is 4 colors into one hot end. The printer must purge each and every time there's a color change, and this process slows prints to an absolute crawl. The actual printing is really fast. Most of the time during multicolor prints is time spent doing this really slow routine of stop, cut, retract, load, purge, flick, purge, some more, wait, and then purge a little bit more. It's agonizingly slow. And then with the default slicer settings, there's also this essentially pointless prime tower. There seems to be a lot of odd delays and pointless bed movement in the current filament change routine, which will definitely be improved in future firmware updates. But yeah, just look at this G-code for the filament change routine. Ah yes, pulsatile flushing, my favorite kind. Take this water dragon from MakerBot, that was an old favorite of mine. The single color model at 0.16mm layer height takes a casual 2 hours to print. But to print it in multicolor using all 4 spools on the AMS, well, that print time explodes to over 12 hours. This is because it has to do at least one filament swap for every single one of its 495 layers. Like, I went to bed with the head not started, and I woke up to it just finishing because it's got all the color changes in that one area. It is that slow. And yeah, when it does the purges, it makes a mess. Oh, the mess. Again, just like the X1 and P1 printers, the A1 Mini poops. And it poops a lot. Twice per color change currently, in fact. The little ejector is brilliantly designed. It uses the extruder itself to push on a tiny rack gear system with a gear increase, which flicks the purge filament away from the printer. However, unlike the other machines, this gantry moves up in the Z-axis as the print completes, resulting in the purge filament just being flicked into the surrounding environment, I suppose. I did make a makeshift catchment tray using a filament box, and it was this full after just this many multicolor prints. And even then, some managed to fly off onto the floor where I keep stepping on them, or find their way onto the print platform. And I do have a few thoughts on how they could improve this with some kind of poop chute, but it's definitely more complicated to solve than the fixed point that is found on the X1 and P1 printers. And I do feel like Bambu's engineers were so focused on designing clever little mechanisms that they didn't stop and think, where does this stuff actually go when someone prints this in their house? Well then, probably not the review people were hoping for. But, despite seeming somewhat negative, I really like this machine, just not for the reasons it's been hyped for. This is what the Cetus should have become in my opinion. It's beefed up with an incredible array of smarts that just work out of the box at a price point that's cheaper than some Ender 3 variants. It's $299 US or $459 US with the AMS Lite, which unfortunately you'll have to also purchase if you want to get this machine on release, because Bambu is only selling them as a package on release due to material shortages. For filament management and some multicolor stuff, the AMS Lite is super handy to have, but for many people I feel they'd get plenty of value of just buying the printer by itself, because to me this feels like the perfect beginner 3D printer for people who just want to print things, whether it's things they've designed themselves or things they've downloaded from sites like Bambu's upcoming Maker World, because that's where the company is clearly trying to position itself. Each A1 Mini comes with a little kit where you can 3D print the parts for some stuff like a mouse or a lamp or other cool projects, and you simply scan the QR code on the box and then you can send it to the printer to start printing right away. At least in theory, I haven't gotten it to work quite yet. This is, however, another step towards a 3D printing ecosystem where you don't really have any control. Not only is this machine fully closed source, but by printing directly from the app, you don't even get access to the original design files. And the AMS system has RFID readers to identify Bambu's own filament, which is very, very handy, but it possibly could require you to only use their filament to start said prints in future, although it doesn't currently do that. DRM attempts in this space haven't exactly been popular in the past, so I think the community will be keeping a very close eye on Bambu moving forwards, myself included. If you think this little printer sounds like your jam, you can pick up an A1 Mini with AMS Lite for yourself via the link in the description below, keeping in mind that they have a very limited batch available at time of release. And truly, thank you for watching, guys. I hope this video, in a sea of others about this hot, hyped new printer, has helped you make an informed decision, because here on Maker's Muse, it is my aim to empower your creativity through technology. Catch you later, guys. Bye.